rolling for real now? Well then, I just wasted 30 minutes talking to myself with no sound. It's currently midnight, and I'm supposed to do a devlog. Because I promised myself to do a devlog whenever I can. At least once a week. I don't want to yell, but I feel like yelling right now. I have no sound. Anyway, welcome to the devlog. This was not how I intended to start. I'm very negative right now. Alright. Hey. So, who am I? Alright. So, my name is Noxy. It's not really my name, but it's Noxy. Alright, let's keep it at that. I make games for a living. At least that is what I want to do. I am currently third year high school. I don't know what that translates to in American terms, in English terms, or whatnot. But it's the last year. So much I can say. Here in Sweden, we have different programs, and I'm currently studying a game dev program. So I am sort of set for life. Not set for life, but I've started my game dev. I've started my game dev experience already. So, sorry, I have a bit of a cold. So, now that you know that, let's talk about something more important. These fellas and these fellas them. Why do I need to talk about them? Because they're important to me. Back in 2017, like early 2017, we made the game MistCo. Stands for Mr. Igneous Salmon Transportation Company. Very long name, very easy to shorten down. And the game was... I fell in love with the game, basically. The characters were really good. I really liked this final design of the character. I really liked the party game aspect of it, because it's sort of an arcade party-ish game where you play as 4 players who have to deliver a boat of cargo from one port to another. As fast as possible, with as much cargo as possible, with the least damage possible. All of that. There was a lot of factors factored into the score. But you needed to get as high a score as possible, and it was really fun to play. Now, after the game was made public, because we made the game, it was a really fun game. I loved the game. So we, of course, as you do with every game you love, you sign up for a competition. What we did was we signed up for a school competition where we challenged other schools that also made games. But this was my first year. I was really happy when I found out that we were the ones that were selected to represent our school. There was 4 games that represented our school, and we represented year 1. So we got up to wherever it is, which city we went to. I think it was Jönköping or something like that. And we set up our game, and the people there tell us, like, okay, so once you're set up, you are free to go and look at the other games, and we will have the award ceremony in approximately an hour. So excited as I was, I looked around at the other games, and I found that every single game, except for maybe like a handful, were so much more polished. There were so much better games. Maybe not in the design itself, but in the polish they had put in. Like, the games were, they were amazing, like in quality, which our games severely lacked. Because we were first years, we had barely done anything like this before. So after that competition, we shut down the project. no one really wants to work on with it. There's a handful of people. Like, a part of me wanted to work on it, but after that competition, it felt embarrassing to work on it. So people dropped out left, right, and center. But we came to the conclusion that if we want to make this game again, we would. So, in year 2, we basically forget the game. I don't. As you can see, I painted a mural on the wall of the game because I fell in love with the game again. I didn't play it because it's a multiplayer game, but I fell in love with the character. I fell in love with the I fell in love with the concept. I fell in love with pretty much everything about the game. The theme, the party aspect of it. It's what I wanted to do. Maybe it's because it was the first proper game I made. I had made games earlier. I had made a mod for Minecraft a couple of years back, but this was the first proper game I actually made, and maybe it's some sort of nostalgia thing, even though it's only been 2 years. So I don't pick up the project again because I know people are still sort of shaken after the incidents, or not the incident, but the reaction of our game. There was no polish, and it was like lackluster compared to everything else. So I decided to do another game, a much more ambitious game, and I hated myself throughout that entire game. Like the game concept, I love the game concept of that as well, but it was over ambitious, and there was no way in hell that I could do it, let alone a studio of 30. Actually, that should be the other way around. I don't think a studio of 30 could even make the game. That's what I wanted to say. So yeah, that's how ambitious it was. So we shut that game down in April of 2018, earlier this year. And I jumped on another project I'd been working closely to, of Grids. It was a strategy board game that a couple of friends made. And that was their first proper game. And I wanted to help them as much as I could. Then I found out they are also going to this competition that I went to in first year, and they're representing the second year. And they want me to tag along because of the feedback I've given. I'm very humbled by this, and I accept, and I come along. And I can sense that their game was much better than what we did in first year, because obviously it would. I expected as much, but it sort of gave me hope, because they also made a game for the first year, a sort of like a tower defense game, very similar to that of Bloons Tower Defense, and that game, I don't want to shit on them, but it wasn't the best. So seeing them go from that to Grids was, I was proud of them, I have to say, and it inspired me to actually want to go back and make this. Unfortunately, third year comes around, and everyone says that the second year is the hardest, the third year will be a cruise. So I do all this unnecessary shit. Because of the education the school has given me, I wanted to give back to the school, and I signed up for the student council, and got like a leadership role in that. So I have that now. I had work throughout all of second year, but now I had to quit that because of too much workload, which I will get into. At least here in Sweden, I don't know how it is in other countries, graduation is a very big thing, and I'm also in charge of that. And then finally there's the workload, because although it's supposed to be a cruise like this last year, because no one really cares about the last year, but the last year is when people start to feel like, okay, this is the last year, I want to get out of here, basically. But there's most of my teachers has told me, at least it feels like most of my teachers has told me, fail this course and you won't graduate. And that sucks if that happens. So, and I can't see myself say that I'm studious. Growing up, I was called many things. I was called smart. I was called a bit of a nerd and shit. Which I like the negative connotation of all that. I never really got to me, but the thing that got to me was actually people calling me smart, calling me like, you're too clever. You should skip a grade. You should do this and do that. Because that made me think like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I should relax a bit. Maybe I could chill out a bit with the homework. Maybe I could skip this one thing. And that became a bad habit for me. And I don't really do work anymore. I don't... At least I didn't until this year. Now I know that this is very important. And I've started to take up a lot of responsibilities again. Anywho, so that's 4 things I should be doing. 3 things because I quit work. What do? I remake the game I made in first year. Why? Because I feel the need to. So, with that monologue out of the way, let's get to the devlog. Mistco is, as I said earlier, a party arcade game where you have to deliver cargo from one port to another. The game I made in first year was a very prototypey game, and it wasn't up to par. So it was made in an outdated version of Unity. It used an outdated API. Which has now been not the outdated version, but the API has been integrated into Unity, so they stopped working on the API, and therefore I don't have it anymore. So I couldn't port it to Unity. And therefore I decided to, you know what, let's just remake the whole shit in a new project. So far I've told a handful of people about it. I've told one in the previous team, the one other person who wanted to pick up this game again if she had the time, and she's all go if she finds the time to do it, which is really how I should do it. But here I am with work up to my ass, and I'm doing something I shouldn't do. So anyway, I created a new project with the sole intent to try to remake that prototype I made in first year and polish it and make it better and have coherent design and be conscious about what I do and all of that jazz. Because I didn't do any of that in first year. I was like, hey, let's make a boat game and let's see how it turns out. And then in second year I was like, oh yeah, design's a thing. I need to think about the target customer. I need to think about why I'm doing these choices. So that's a lot of things I'm gonna have to put into consideration when I'm making this game. So I remade a project, and the way I work is I work in a very ass backwards way, best way to put it, where I, instead of starting with the player, where many people start, you want to control the player to begin with, of course, because, like, okay, for those who are just interested in the devlog and don't know that much about game dev itself, you usually start with the player, and then you, at least from what I've heard, you start with the player and then you go from there on to the next big thing that isn't the player, and then how the player relates to that. So let's say an enemy. You have a player, and then you want to add an enemy, and then you want the player to attack the enemy. Then when that is implemented, you want to add a chest. You want to add gold in that chest that the player can pick up. So you create the chest. You create that the player can interact with the chest, and then you create the economy system and the gold and the you don't need to create a shopkeeper there, but you do it like in that order, and then you work from there on. I don't do that. I start at the menu because it's really stupid actually, but I feel like personally when I make the game or when I test the game, I want it to feel like I'm testing a game and I'm not just testing this random piece of software that is just in front of me. So when I start the game, I get the splash screen if I exported it, and then it's like you get the fucking main menu, and then from there on you get to the game. So I started with the main menu, which I've recreated. It only has 3 buttons at the moment, where only one works. Or it's 4 buttons. 4 buttons and only one works. It's the play button. So when you click on it, it takes you to a character selection screen, because I don't want this to be keyboard based. I want this to be controller based. So this is a third party Xbox One controller that I'm gonna use for testing purposes, because I can't find my normal controllers. So I want this to be a controller game because I feel like the sort of game I'm making fits the best on a controller. I could definitely do a keyboard port, or maybe like you could change input and whatnot, but the thing about the controller in this case is that it allows for couch co-op, something that basically is the game. I want the game to be basically only couch co-op, which I'll get into later. Thank you. So couch co-op. So yeah, you have the couch co-op. You have you can plug in 4 Xbox controllers. You can play with your friends in the couch and have fun. But I also want to port this to other consoles down the line if I can get the licenses for it and so on. If this goes big, I want to do that. Also, it just feels better. I tried to do with keyboard in the first project, and I couldn't find it to work as well as I wanted it to. So I'm just gonna stick with this. Maybe you could change input later. I don't know. But anywho, as soon as you selected the character, you can select color. You can select all that jazz. You can select who's gonna be captain among the bunch, and then you hop into the game at the moment. In between that though, I'm going to add some sort of level selection, and I'm doing level selection within quotes now or quotation marks, as you say, because in the prototype version of Myst, we had proper worlds and levels. So you had like a pirate world, and then you had levels that were pirate themed, and then you had a cargo level, and there were levels that were cargo themed. And then you had like a jungle level, and it was a jungle themed level, a jungle world and jungle themed levels, underwater world with underwater themed levels, and so on and so forth. And it's fun and all. I like the thematics of that, but my design teacher came up with an idea that I sort of got stuck on, which was to make some sort of open-ended thing. Where you basically get a world map. Doesn't have to be our world. It could be a fantasy world that I made up or something like that. But you have these ports that are set out on a map, and you start in the city of let's call it Port City. So you start in Port City, and then from there on you get a mission like, okay, so you need to go to let's see, let's say Shoe Village. I just saw Shoe, and therefore it's Shoe Village. So you go to Shoe Village from the Port City with the cargo that you are given. When you deliver that cargo, you get some cash, and then you get like a couple of missions you can choose from. From there on, it's open-ended. Basically, you get like, okay, so you have this mission: deliver 4 crates of salmon and 3 barrels of salt to Port City again, and you get that in Shoe Village, and then it's like, okay, so Shoe Village only has salmon; it doesn't have salt. So you purchase 4 boxes of salmon, or 4 crates of salmon, and it's like, okay, what if I go to Simpleton, the city, and pick up salt there, and then from there on, I can go back to Port City and deliver this cargo, and then I earn money from that. And it would be like you earn a lot of money, and then you purchase cargo that is pretty cheap. In sort of that way. So you couldn't exactly fuck up unless you do it too much. Unless you can't deliver on time, or if you purchase too much of one thing, or so on. So it's not like, it's resource management, but it's not heavy resource management, basically. So, and that's what my design teacher came up with, and I really like that idea. So I might go with that, but I'm not sure. Because that sort of turns the game from a party game to a resource management game. And maybe that's some sort of fun hybrid to do party and resource management. It doesn't sound fun, but who knows? Maybe in testing it works. Otherwise, I can find some other way to do it. So, and that would mean like it's more open world than anything, which I'm a fan of, actually. With that out of the way, let's get to the gameplay. In the prototype, there were a couple of things you could fix. So there were, I should have looked this up after the sound disappeared on the previous one, but there was no, I can't remember what the thing a sail is on. There was a sail you could repair, and then there were hulls, Hull, on port side and starboard, and there was also a front hull. The hulls didn't take damage over time, the sail did, and you had to repair it every time we got low. And it had some sort of casting time, if you could call it that. And then once it was repaired, it was reset to full, and you basically had to fix it. So because if the sail got completely broken, you couldn't move, and if the hull got completely broken, barrels and boxes and crates and whatnot could fall off, and that would mean you would lose cargo, and that would be more expensive. So I want to have this feature back, but I want to reiterate on it because there was some problems with it. To begin with, in the prototype version, there were big cyan boxes you had to go up and activate to, which clashed with the ship itself. I really disliked that. So maybe I can find some way to fix that. I'm not sure exactly how to do that. But then, as well as that, after that, I want to sort of make it more smooth, because right now there was some sort of health bar, if you'd call it that, covering like the entire bottom part of the screen. Like, you see where my hands are going right now, it covered that much of the screen, and it was all the health bars, and it was like, no, that's really bad, I can't have that. So I want to sort of minimalize that health bar, if you could call it that, but by making it so that the asset changes depending on what happens to it, if you call it that. Like the sail gets more torn, or the hull starts to fall off, and sort of like it starts to sway back and forth and whatnot. So those are just my thoughts on that. I also want to, because in the prototype, I separated the captain and the crew because I was so stupid I couldn't figure out how stairs worked, how to get to stairs work in Unity. So I just decided to separate them, the crew and the captain. Now I want to make it so that the captain can be the only one who steers the ship, but he is the one. He can also interact with the ones below, so he can repair the sail if he needs to. He can repair the hull if he needs to, if his crewmates are busy doing other things. Which yeah, I really want that. I want to fix the map, because the map in the prototype version basically, or just the steering in general, because when you steer the ship, you could basically walk up to the steering wheel, you could move the stick to the left, and the ship would just move, and then you could press B, and you would exit the driving state, and the ship would continue moving. So you could go check on the map, and you could do other things. But like, what I found myself doing most of the time was I just made the ship steer to the left. I then walked to the map, and I just stood on the map until I saw a rock approaching. And that won't work. That wasn't fun for the captain at all. So I feel like a way to iterate on that is, and this is, I'm gonna spitball a bit now, but I feel like having some sort of system where I how would I put it into words? So I want it to be like sort of cartography. So you don't know how the world actually looks like until you either purchase a map in one of the cities, and that would only be for like the surrounding part of the city, or if you have driven there. So that would mean that everything is pre-generated, or following some sort of seed, probably Fernel. Not Fernel. Is it Fernel? I can't remember if it's Fernel or not. I think I have it here. Perlinois. So it's probably gonna be like Perlinois or some shit like that. So I could like see. Okay, so there's gonna be a rock here. Or like I'm driving through here, and there's rocks here and rocks here and rocks here, but on top of that, I don't see anything. Like I haven't been up there, so I don't know if that's maybe an easier path, if it's a harder path, or whatnot. So yeah, basically I have to do like exploring for yourself. I also want the camera to, or the map, I should say, should be more zoomed in, because holy shit, you could basically see like a quarter of the map at all time, and I didn't like that. It should like warn you a second or so before you actually crash into something. Now this is just me spitballing. I have no idea if that's actually going to make it better or not, but that's just me thinking it would be better. But what else? Maybe I want it so that when you're steering and you release the wheel, it's just going to slow down like a lot, so you lose time on that. But what else? The cannon I want gone. We added a cannon because we wanted a pirate theme to begin with. So we added a cannon, and the cannon was so finicky to work with. Because you're doing this from a sort of tilted top-down perspective. Wait. Oh fuck. Sorry. I feel really bad, like doing this devlog, and I'm like sneezing and coughing every other minute it feels like. Anyway, so because you're doing this from a tilted top-down perspective, you sort of see things coming in front of you or to the right of the ship, but you don't see things that are to the left of the ship. I should use starboard and port side, but I can't for the life of me remember which one is which. So let's say there's a ship approaching from above, which is the right side of the ship. You can see it, but if you try to activate the cannon, it's really annoying because the ship is covering our ship is covering most of the screen, and their ship is covering the other part of the screen, so you can't really see where you're aiming. And it's even worse on the cannon that is closer to you, because then you can't see anything. You can't even see the ship that is approaching. So I don't want that function at all unless I remove tilt to top down completely. But more than that, I don't think there's a lot more I want to say about changing the prototype. Mostly everything else I want the same. At least what I can remember right now. But on top of that, I want to add some sort of... I don't want people to only buy I don't want only people to buy cargo in the different cities. I want them to buy customization, and I want them to buy like parts of maps and shit. Maybe upgrades to make the ship go faster, or maybe it can ram through certain objects and whatnot. And then it would be sort of like... Then it would be sort of a progression system as well, which would bring people back to play it if I found it boring just sailing across the ocean every now and then. I also feel like there should be some sort of end goal. What that is at the moment, I have no idea. That might be coming up in a later devlog. Speaking of which, maybe I should actually give it a name. I feel like I should give the devlog a name, but I can't think of something right now. Maybe until next devlog, or to be named. But anywho, is there anything else? So yeah, I also, because this wasn't in the normal game, I added 2 new things, which I found necessary, but at the same time, they were just substance, which was, I made, what would you call it, procedurally generated ocean, which is, it just generates a mesh, and it adds some sort of pearl noise to it, which makes it seem like it's a bit rough. And then there's waves that I'm using sine waves to make the nodes on the mesh go up and down, so it looks like waves. And then I can change how big the mesh is and how much it's going to, how much the waves move and whatnot. And I really like that, and I'm really happy with how that turned out. I also made, with the new shader graph system, I made clouds, because the game needs clouds. You're not gonna see them most of the time, but I wanted to have clouds just so that the world feels real, because there are certain angles I wanted to, like, maybe not every time, but in the version I have right now, the camera sort of makes a spin around your ship before you start, and if the camera is at a 70-degree angle normally, that spin around is at like 10 degrees or something like that. So you see everything. You see the water, you see the ship, and you see the sky. And then I want the clouds there, even though they're not going to be visible when the camera's actually above here. So I'm completely fine with that. Anything else? God, I'm feeling tired. Holy crap, it's 20 to 1. Anyway. So yeah, those sort of things I've done right now. And there's still a lot to come. Who knows? Maybe I'll have some better... This was basically just to introduce you to the project. Tell you what the game was, what the game will be, and what I've done so far. I also want to mention that the game is, the prototype version of the game is on itch.io right now, So I'll post the link in the description when this comes out, if it's next week or if it's next week. Holy crap, I can't say that because you have no idea when that is. If it's if it's by the end of November or if it's in early December, I don't know. But this video is going up soon, and you may look at it with your own eyes. And maybe this will get you interested in Myst. Maybe you are interested in the we're interested in a prototype and you're interested in this. But yes, Myst is coming back. I am excited to work on this. It's a hobby project. I want you to remember that. So don't expect this to be out by May of next year, or maybe even September of next year. It could be a very long process till this is out. But yeah, thank you for spending 30 minutes with me or something like that. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next vlog. Bye.